Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's Corby Davidson from the Hardline. Welcome, Corby.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
So you blew my mind last week because you told the story of the name Jalen. And when you started that story, I think you were trying to walk us all through a path, and I followed it right down the row. First thing I noticed is I didn't know anyone named Jalen when I was growing up. The first time I remember anyone being named Jalen was, I guess, Jalen Rose from the Fab Five. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, which this is so weird, but back in the whenever the Fab Five became a thing, and we learned that all their names, and you heard the name Jalen Rose, I didn't think anything of it. It was too abnormal. But apparently, he's the first Jalen on the history of the planet.
Okay, so we don't have a sports audience. So the Fab Five was this year. The University of Michigan had 5 freshmen that started. They were all amazing recruits, and that was what, 1993 or something?
Yeah, early 90s. Yeah, somewhere
like
91, 92, something like that. Yeah. So they became household names. They were part of the pop culture scene back then, and they go to the national championship game. There's 5 18-year-olds all starting, and Jalen Rose was named. His mom named him after his dad, whose name was Jason, and his uncle, whose name was Leonard. And so she combined those two and named him Jalen. And apparently, literally, that's the first Jalen to ever grace the planet.
That's the first one I remember. So that's where it came from. This is the first Jalen ever. Before 1993, through 10,000 years of recorded human history, the Babylonians even, there was no Jalen until this guy. But that's not the situation anymore.
No. So, immediately after, I think in '93, the name popped up on the baby name register of, they've got this list of popular baby names that dates back to, I think, the turn of last century. And obviously the name wasn't on there because the name didn't exist. And within year one of that guy being, in the consciousness of Americans, it popped up into the top 250, and then it slowly climbed. Jalen did. I think it reached its peak when Jalen was in the NBA in 2000, playing for the Pacers, and it reached in the top 75 or something like that. And so there were all these kids at the time in the early 2000s named Jalen, and now they're everywhere. And again, it's so bizarre to think that this name didn't exist, because now it is the most popular name in the NBA. It's the most popular name in the NFL. It's the most popular name in college football and the most popular name in college basketball.
I think it's the most popular name on the Cowboys, too. If you go to the Cowboys roster, go to DallasCowboys.com and just pull up the players roster. If you count everyone, even in the practice squad, 4 Jalens.
How many are there?
Say it again.
How many are there on the Cowboys?
4.
Then yeah, for sure it is.
Yeah, and I don't know half these guys. Jalen Brooks, Jalen Tolbert, I know him. Jalen Dalton, Jalen Cropper. 4 Jalens on the Cowboys. Yeah.
I mean, and again, it came out of nowhere, and now here we are. But yeah, he was like he said. I was watching some weird interview a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about this. I'm like, I have never heard this story in my life. I had no idea the name didn't exist until he was born. I didn't know any of it. I didn't even, because you don't really think about it. Yeah, there's a lot of Jalen's out there. Jalen just won the MVP at the Super Bowl. Jalen
Hurts, yeah.
Jalen Hurts. Jalen Brunson, who used to play for the Mavericks. You don't think about it being, a newer name. I feel like it's been around forever, but it hadn't been. It's only been around for a couple of decades, and now it's tearing it up. And most recently in the NBA, I think there are 12 that have entered the league in the last 3 years.
Good Lord. Okay, so are you looking forward to, at least here in North Texas, there may be a surge in the name Corby, perhaps? Because you've been on radio for 25, 30 years, whatever, around here.
Yeah, well, I think that they'd already be around by now then, that. It probably would have been the same thing as Jalen. They start naming Corbys around 2000, 2001 or something like that. But I've heard of a lot of dogs named Corby because people tell me that they named their dogs after me, and I think that's more appropriate for me. I'm
pretty good
with Corby. I'm fine with Corby being a limited name in the human race, but I like it to be populated in the animal race, in the dog race more.
That's quite a compliment, actually.
Right,
so are you at the Plano Event Center?
Yeah, I just pulled up. Yeah, we have Ticket Stock, our big weekend hoo-ha out here that we have every year. And, yeah, I'm pulling up right now.
So Ticket Stock tomorrow from noon until something or other?
Tomorrow, yeah, noon until 7. And we have Dirk Nowitzki coming out from 6 to 7 and talking about Luka and all that good stuff. And then Barry Switzer on Saturday and lots of other DeMarvion Overshown from the Cowboys and lots of other people. So, yeah, it's our big weekend, and it's super fun and all that good stuff.
All right, well, you blew my mind with the Jalen story, so thanks for sharing it with my crowd. I appreciate it. Corby Davidson from the Hardline on the Ticket.
We'll talk to you later.
Hey, do you still do ever the like the repeater or the interrupter or the overcusser? I haven't heard that in a while.
So I can't do the overcusser anymore because the FCC cracked down on it. They were too close to it. Yeah, so I can't do that. But, yeah, I do the other stuff. I've done, I haven't done what was God, I can't remember the
corrector or the repeater?
The guy that corrected everything or that repeated everything. Redundant man. That was it. Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
But yeah, I've done the interrupter.
Oh man, I used to do that to homeless people in New Orleans, and it was only funny about 5 times, and then it was just mean.
Exactly. It's mean-spirited.
All right. Thank you again, Corby Davidson from the Hardline.
We'll see you.
Literally the Marconi winner for the major market station of the year. Not the sports station of the year, the major market station of the year. They'll be at Ticket Stock tomorrow and Saturday. Kristen Roberts is coming back on. And I have some questions here. AI, keeps advancing more and more every day. It's becoming more and more part of our lives. And as an intellectual property attorney, this brings up a whole new round of questions. If I make a picture on AI, who owns that? Do I own it? Is it joint ownership with me and whatever app I made it with? Like, what are the intellectual property rules behind that, Kristen?
Well, thank you for having me. And to answer your question, it kind of depends. So the lawyer answer, right? It kind of depends. No, but really it does because what you put into the AI, so the information you plug into the AI, that may be protectable, but what comes out of the AI may not necessarily be. So, for example, if you ask for a picture to be generated, but then you start to tweak it and you make it more yours, or you take the picture that's generated by the AI and you personally make changes to it. Those changes that you make could result in something protectable, but anything that the AI actually does or generates for you is likely not going to be protectable.
So if I put in an input into an AI and it generates a picture just wholly out of nothing, that's owned by the AI app?
Well, not necessarily owned by, because under the laws currently, anything that AI generates is not protectable. So it's really just sort of
public domain.
Anybody can use it at that point. But what you've put in, those specific parameters, generate me or create a picture for me of, someone's dog, or a picture of a dog with, a paintbrush in its mouth, and that dog picture comes out. You may not necessarily be able to claim ownership of the picture, but those prompts that you put in, those wouldn't have come into existence without human involvement. So it's really the human involvement piece of it that creates what we know as intellectual property.
Okay, so what about, I'm thinking of a situation, Kristen, where a guy who works for a TV station, he updated their website. He got caught using AI articles. Instead of writing them for himself, he would get AI to write his articles and throw them up there. And they had mistakes in them all over the place, so he got busted pretty easy. But is that the same rules there? Is he not allowed to use AI and put his name on it? Is that some sort of level of fraud?
I mean, it depends on who is asking you to post the articles. If it's just you running a blog, you can use AI to help you write your blog articles, but you're going to be taken to task by your consumer base if they find a bunch of inaccurate information and things that you haven't verified, because you're just sort of sloppily relying on AI to help you. But AI is a tool, and like any tool, you have to use it in order for it to get better. And that's really where we're seeing a lot of the issues come about, is in the use of the tool. In order to make the tool more efficient, it needs to be trained. So how are we training this AI, and what are we using to train it? And that's really where we're starting to get into some of this intellectual property infringement, stuff.
Well, if you do own the AI engine and you're the guy training it, it seems like you could write a whole book with this thing and still get all the intellectual property rights as if you wrote it yourself.
Well, not necessarily, because the actual output itself is not going to be protectable, but all of the ideas and all of the input that you're putting into it. So, for example, let's say you write the manuscript of the book all yourself, and you feed it into AI to clean it up and edit it for you. Well, the resulting book is still your content, but the pieces that were edited and done strictly by AI may not be. And that's really where we're wondering where the law is going, because it hasn't been 100% decided yet.
What if you train an AI to decide when to write something, and the AI decides when it's going to write it, what subjects, what's going to be in it? I mean, would this AI now be eligible for like royalties for books sold? Like, who would get that money even?
No, royalties and intellectual property rights are reserved strictly for humans. So it cannot be owned or, done by anything that's not considered a human. And there's case law on that, actually. There were animals in the past that did artwork. And
the gorilla one, wasn't there a Coco lawsuit?
Yep.
Oh, see, I remember stuff. I read a book before.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you with your knowledge and everything.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Coco, the gorilla that learned all the sign language, made some paintings, and there was a court case on who gets the money if those paintings are sold. Which, I mean, you can probably get a lot of bananas for that, but I don't even know how it worked out. I guess it worked out against the gorilla.
Correct. So the court found that no animal and nothing that wasn't human, so anything that wasn't a person, could have an interest in intellectual property rights. And so the same thing, by extension, can be said about AI, language learning models and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I figured that's how the laws will probably stand until the robot revolution comes. Then they'll want their money. Kristen Roberts, how do we find your work outside of WBAP?
You can find me on my website, TrestleLaw.com, TrestleLaw.com.